Hey everyone, welcome back to Elite AI Assisted Coding. Today we have a really cool session with Olli-Pekka and Jaakko from Softalia and now from GitHits. I'm super curious about it. I'm really interested in these areas that use AI to help not just with coding, but also with all the other aspects of software development that are often much more painful. And I think they've identified such an area and are building a really cool product. I'll let you present. If there are any questions, people please just put them in the chat and we'll kind of get to them after the presentation. And yeah, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Olli-Pekka. I'm a senior applied AI architect and CEO founder at Softalia. And we are building a new code set product that I will show you just in a minute. But before we go into that, a little bit more background about me and about open source, because this product is pretty much related to the open source quite heavily. I have myself a long history in open source as I created the OpenCV Python packages. Back in 2016, I maintained them for about 5 years before OpenCV took the maintenance burden from me. So I know how open source operates and what are the major pain points when using open source libraries and tools. And today I want to talk about a common moment for developers. You're building something, you hit a wall and you can't find an answer anywhere. Documentation is often out of date and AI IDEs, while they are good at generating code, they cannot cover every edge case you can encounter. So you have to jump out of your IDE, go to Google, go to Stack Overflow, go to any other tool you can imagine of and start searching for answers that might solve your problem. So today I'll show how Agentic code search helps you. So what we are building is GitHits. This is our large landing page currently. You can go and have a look at it. So it's a summary of what we are building.
Sorry to interrupt, but you're not screen sharing, at least not yet.
So Schmidt, please check.
No, it works fine for me. I can see this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I'll continue if it's working for everyone. Please say if you can see my screen. So basically the background story with GitHits is that I kept giving the same tip to my friends and when the documentation on Google don't help, search GitHub for answers directly. So often the answer already exists in code issues or somewhere in discussions, but it's not in the docs or published yet, probably something else. And one day this became very clear because our colleague Mikko, he was building a transcription pipeline with Azure Speech SDK. So he got stuck on how to initialize an object called transcribe definition and asked in Slack if anyone where it was defined. But Microsoft actually had the details, but they were in their GitHub repo. They hadn't published them yet. So the only way to find the description how that thing worked was to go to GitHub and search with specific filters and then find the answer from the search results and you could get going. But most people don't end up in GitHub search normally. But it's a very powerful tool to find answers because open source contains so many examples, documentation that it's not published yet. It might be just in some random repo around the GitHub. So that's the my main idea behind GitHits. We are like using GitHub search provide fresh, up-to-date answers to problems you might have. So we tap into the global open source knowledge in a new way. So that moment when Mikko told about this, we or Jaakko grabbed the domain GitHits, and then we started thinking about how to build this thing. And now we have a project going that I will show just in a moment. So this is early, and search queries can take a moment to execute. I haven't optimized anything, so it might be take over a minute to generate an answer, but let's see how it goes. Do we have any demo effects today? So if we go into the itself, this is like the main view. It reminds ChatGPT for some reason quite a lot. But here you can select the programming language you are using. We currently support TypeScript, Python, and JavaScript. And then you can write a few keywords, describe the issue based on error message, for example. Just ask some question that you're having an issue with. So I will now run the original query that I told about that Mikko had problems with. So when I hit the button, it starts searching for open source solutions. What's happening here now, this will take a little bit of time, like I said. So first there's an agent that decides if this is something we should even search for GitHub. So now it decided that searches for GitHub and found 7 sources from GitHub for this query. In the background, actually, the search agent runs like 5 to 10 different queries to GitHub and then provides those results to the re-ranking agent that then combines the answers, best answers from GitHub into this source list. Then this source list is passed to the example agent that generates the final example. So here we have the sources that it found, and actually we can also see if we hover the info button here, we can see why it was selected. So basically all of these are the top results are the Microsoft documentation, and then there is a couple of different repositories for some reason. So now it has finished the example generation, and we can probably we can see how you can use that transcribe definition with ASO Speech SDK. It looks correct, I think. And finally, it will summarize the example for you and what sources it used to generate. So the point here is UI itself. You can use it via UI, but you can copy and paste this example directly to your AI agent and make the AI agent generate the solution into your code or your project directly. So we will have an MCP server, so this can be automated, but currently this UI is the only way to do it. I will run another example that is a little bit different. This is actually a real question that one of the users has asked from this system. So it relates to this LangFuse library, and they had an issue with some base 64 encoding and got this error message: data is not base 64 encoded. So the user asks what could be causing this and how can we check it for it locally. So if we run this, we will go again to the same flow. The GitHits will analyze the request and then pass it to the search agent that does the real queries to GitHub. We will soon see how many how many results we could get this time, but this was a really good example because this, at least before this, returned exactly the issues and the examples that are needed to fix that problem. So let's wait for a moment. So the search might take some time because if the agent doesn't find any proper results with the initial searches, it will do more searches, and because LLMs and agents, because they have tools and they can decide really how to use them, if they're prompt like that, the results, yeah, there might be 0 results or maybe 50 results. At least it's found something because it got the re-ranking phase. And the speed is quite slow because this isn't optimized at all. There's quite many paths for optimization currently. I haven't looked into them, so yeah, found some. So we don't search only code files, but issues as well and discussions. So basically it found the language issue that most likely describes this problem. We can go and have a look. It links directly to the problem. And we have this kind of issue existing in the report. But I don't think this has been solved. So this is probably why the users are asking this question. And as this system is quite heavy on the output token amount is quite low, but we provide really many tokens as input for these agents. It takes, that's one of the reasons why it's so low currently. So that's one of the speed problems that we need to optimize. So it provided some kind of local script to test this issue if it's possible to fix it.
And we got a couple of questions on the chat if you'd like to answer them.
Yeah.
For now, and then maybe we can talk about the UI a little bit, but check out the questions.
Yeah, let's see the questions. Let's see. Yeah, Cloud Code and Crusoe, they don't have access to this. If you check the sources when it was edited 2 days ago, they don't know anything about GitHub issues. They don't know anything about GitHub discussions. They don't see directly in GitHub source code. So yeah, this is a rack over GitHub. That was one of the questions, yes. So we use the retrieval layer is GitHub search currently. That GitLab and other tools as well. So the models agents have to function calling and have access to fresh data. Yeah. There's of course coding agents. We are not trying to replace coding agents. We are extending coding agents here. So this is a tool for coding agents, AI IDEs. We are not competing with Claude or Prose. The agents, you can install this. When we get the MCP out, we can install this as an extension, Cloud Code, Copilot or Closure. Yeah. I think that's the demo. You can ask me questions if you have any. I'll try to answer if you have anything. Currently, I think we have 6 agents on this system working with like 15 different tools together, I think.
So one thing that's super interesting to me is sort of, as much as you are able to reveal, how do you implement this? Because you're doing kind of very specific needle in a haystack search, and to surface the most relevant results from GitHub and then kind of work them into your response. I'm really be curious to learn more about how you're orchestrating this.
So we are using Agentic AI as the agent framework. So basically what we have is one triage agent that controls all these other agents and controls the workflow. So when you get a question here, first the triage agent decides for example, you can ask that how GitHits works. It doesn't go to the search because this is a generic question. The triage agent decides that, no, we don't need a search. After that, these are basically the other agents that this triage agent is using is our tools. So we have this context that is passed between the agent and the triage agent looks to the context and decides what to do next. Currently, the workflow is quite tight, so it's prompt like that. It doesn't like really change the workflow. It's always the same in most cases. Sometimes it might hallucinate and skip some tools. So if the UI breaks, it's because of the triage agent for some reason does something that it isn't supposed to do. But then for the MCP server workflow, we can remove the triage agent completely and speed up this quite significantly, because when an AI agent is using this tool, we know the intent already that it's looking for something. But in this UI, this is more like, because the users can ask basically anything, we have to decide, do we do the expensive search or not? But yeah, that's basically how this works. There is quite a lot of context passing between the agents and filtering stuff and making manual like ranking, scoring to the results. And because under the hood, the GitHub search is mostly a keyword search. It doesn't have any semantic capabilities. So the semantic capability comes from the LLMs in this tool. So the LLMs decide what's relevant and what's not based on the user input.
We have a question here from Alex. I see that Jaco is trying to answer it, but yeah, around different sources other than GitHub. Obviously, GitHub is the primary source for code, but like GitLab or other things, are you starting to look into them too?
Yeah, GitLab and Bitbucket. I don't know if there is so much open source, but yeah, those are probably the next steps when we are trying to integrate new sources to this tool. So yeah.
And we have another interesting question. It's more about the business models. Like how are you planning to sell this? Is it more about connecting to your private repos, or how does this become a compelling commercial offering?
Do you want to answer to this one or?
Yeah, happy to. So the truth is that we haven't decided on the business model yet. So we will see. At the moment, we just launched a private beta and we have less than or fewer than 50 users. So we're very much on the problem validation stage. But what I can say is that our goal is to keep this dirt cheap. So maybe there will be like a freemium option and then very low cost monthly subscription, but we'll see. If you have any ideas, please post comments on the chat. Like, how should we go about it? We'd love to hear.
Well, one more thing I'm really curious to understand is, how do you do the search in GitHub? Do you have like your own index of everything, or are you proxying GitHub search? Because that's a lot, all of GitHub.
Yeah, we are searching for GitHub directly currently, and that's one of the reasons why we are using the user-specific tokens, so we can bypass most of the rate limits. Because when you use user's identity, then you get quite a lot of more rate or higher rate limits than when you use GitHub search as an like single app installation, you would hit the like rate limits directly. So yeah, the only way to get the fresh answers is to like search the GitHub search directly, because indexing all the data in Git, there are tools that are trying to do it, like the grep app, and then there's source graph, and there is maybe something else, context 7 as well. Those tools are copying open source and indexing them, but of course the indexing process, depending how you do it, might take 24 hours for one repository. So when the indexing is done, it's already outdated. So the only way is to directly search and skip the indexing process altogether, because GitHub itself is indexing all the stuff constantly. So you don't need to really index it anymore yourself.
One thing I was thinking about is that, Olli-Pekka, maybe you could show how you can access the repositories directly from the UI, and what are some of the aspects we have there, some of the features.
So yeah, you can click on these lines directly, for example here, because the user asked originally that they got an error, data is base 64 encoded. So if we click on the line, we can directly see the source code for that library on the line that's causing the error to appear. So you can probably read this function and decide why that's happening in your app, what this code is doing. So then there is, because we are storing quite a lot of data in the backend that is not currently visible in this UI. So we have the star count, we have the license of the repository, we have all kinds of other stuff that we could show in here, but it's not yet in the UI. But the ranking process is already using those and is prioritizing like repositories that have more stars and that have more permissive licenses.
And there is a comment from Ali and a question. So it goes, in private repos, specifically for data and BI code, do you expect users to add domain-specific context to enable search?
So if you mean like, let's say private data as an input, I don't know, domain-specific data depends on what that is, but I would expect that the users at least provide some main keywords and some description of the issue that they are having. So of course, the more you're giving, the more we can expand the search query and do more extensive searches to GitHub and find better answers. So if you provide like 3 words, it's probably not very good. But if you provide this kind of question and provide the direct error message or the library names, anything you can give that would help search find the solution would be good. Yeah.
Alex also commented that my one and only use so far of the GitHits actually helped me compared to using an LLM. I was trying to create a Python script to generate a dashboard of plots based on an input CSV file. Thanks for that feedback, Alex. We'd love to hear more. And Olli-Pekka, if you can check it out, and if you have any comments, please share.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the comment. I don't know if that's the use case for GitHits, but good that it helped.
I'm very interested also in the last comment from Peter. How do you see this working more as in an enterprise scenario where you are inner sourcing and kind of looking at your own repos, which are by now maybe way too much to understand without tooling?
Yeah, I think if the repositories are located in GitHub or is in some common platform that we could access easily from this system, I think it could work. But the private thing is something that probably users, our enterprises, especially within some banking sector or something else need. So that's a bit, enterprises are quite hard in that sense, privacy sense, because currently this tool doesn't have any access to any private repositories. It's only public repositories. If you have issues with open source, you should use probably GitHits, but for internal repositories, I don't know yet what we are going to do.
Something that has been asked from us a lot is the MCP server, and that's up in the works. So, Olli-Pekka, what can you tell us about that, and when can users expect to see the MCP server?
I probably have first version ready late this week or next week, I think. So that's all. That opens quite many new use cases because the AI agents can be prompted to use GitHits when they hit a roadblock themselves. So when I use myself Copilot, Cloud Sonnet and all the new models, but I think there are many cases that the training data for them is just too old. They can't solve the issues without external tools. So, for example, when I'm doing GitHits, I'm using like the latest versions of all the libraries. Everything is the latest and greatest of everything. So, the more new stuff you work with, the more GitHits probably helps you. If you're working with some 5-year-old legacy stuff, then it's different story. That's already in the training data of the LLMs.
Eleanor, how about you? Like, you were one of the early testers and you compared GitHits to ChatGPT. So what would you say? Where do we still fall short?
Yeah, I think that's always the question, right, with AI products, because you always you do a lot of orchestration and building things to catch up with the models, and then the next version of the models you find already does some of these things kind of out of the box. On the one hand, you don't always want to wait for like next year's model because we live in this year, not the next year. And at the same time, I guess for builders like you, that must be a huge dilemma. Like, where do you invest your efforts? So yeah, to me that's interesting. I use stuff like ChatGPT a lot, and it used to be terrible at this, and now that it does this thinking and searching live, it's actually not too bad. It doesn't have the kind of precision you have in GitHits in the display and showing you exactly where it's coming from, and so that's still an advantage. But I can't imagine what it's like to be you building this and thinking, okay, what if this is fundamental to our product, and what is actually the big labs are going to release next year?
Yeah, you're right. We're trying to collect as much data and feedback as humanly possible. And we're using post hoc and we're logging all kinds of events and trying to make sense of all that. But yeah, there's a comment from Peter that precision is the value I see, setting a constraint context. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because we are different from ChatGPT and like the other tools that have web search enabled. They are using web search. It's Google or Bing or whatever the search engine, web search engine is using enabled in them. So in that sense, they don't see in the source code of the libraries. That's not indexed in the web at all. GitHub repositories, the readmes might be, and some of the issues might be there, but anything else, if you need to go look into the code level, you cannot find that with any of those other tools.
Maybe I can sort of try to ask a little bit more forward-looking question. What's like the maximalist version of GitHits when you're very down to earth and you like building and staying in the moment? And so I'll really ask you to do this for like a moment and imagine what's what's the maximalist version of GitHits? What did it look like when it's really scaled, when it's really happening?
Do you want to Jaakko, say something?
Yeah, well, I was actually posting about this earlier today because I was doing a job post. So obviously we're starting with the public repositories, but we want to include the private repos at some point as well. But we also want to include GitLab and Bitbucket, but basically all of the web as well. So there are many up-to-date discussions going on Reddit and Stack Overflow and all other sources. And when we got the idea for GitHits, and I wanted to print a hoodie and I didn't know what to put in the hoodie, but we had the brand GitHits. I just put search engine for software engineers. And then when I started interviewing developers, I noticed that people started referring us to code as code search. And that's what we are probably initially, search engine for software engineers. That's the ultimate game. But also, hopefully, we will have the best data so that tools like Cursor and Copilot and whatnot would use our data to, like, not only that there's like an extension to IDE and MCP server, but they would actually use our data as well when they are training their models and helping their users to get the best up-to-date information. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I like this vision of the search engine for search engineer for engineers, because maybe that's exactly this what distinguishes it. As we talked before, am I getting answers that are engineering specific or just search answers that are more generic?
Yeah, that's right. And we learned that it's very hard to figure out the messaging for this product because different people seem to have different reference points, and the devil is in the details. So, we have the classic tappers and listeners problem. I don't know if you know the term, but when you're like tapping and you're listening to the song in your head and you think that why doesn't the other person understand what's the song that I'm clapping? So we're struggling with that. So that's why we are relentlessly asking for feedback and trying to understand what makes GitHits valuable, but also like how should we go about the messaging side and positioning.
That's fascinating. And maybe a question to you, Ali. What's like the most surprising thing that you discovered building GitHit? Because I know from my own experience as a developer that usually the things that you expect to be hard, sometimes they're not actually that hard, and then something surprises you and you learn from it. Do you have like a war story like this for us?
I think, I don't know if there's anything like really surprising, but I have been trying to integrate MCP to Fast API now a couple of days, and I have to say that the libraries, MCP libraries, they are not really stable. They are filled with bugs. That's one of the surprising things, considering how much MCP is like hyped current. But the libraries are not up to that level yet. So you end up with all kinds of edge cases when you're trying to integrate, and hasn't been so easy that I believe it would be. But that's probably the most surprising thing lately I have seen in doing this. The LLMs itself, I have been working with LLMs as a consultant many years now, so there hasn't been any big surprises. Maybe the biggest surprise is that GPT-5 minis, I like the model really much, so I don't use the GPT-5 main model at all in this current. Most of the stuff is based on the GPT-5 mini, because it seems to like balance the speed and accuracy quite.
Yeah, I share your love for GPT-5 Mini. I don't know why people are not talking about it more. I think if you don't need the knowledge that's baked into the model, which if you do your own retrieval, that's not even that interesting. Who cares about the sort of knowledge in the model? It is very precise in following instructions. It is very agentic, very easy to steer. I'm using it all the time now, actually, much more even than the full GPT-5 model.
Yeah, so this current GitHit is a mix like GPT-4 Mini, GPT-4o, GPT-4.51, and then there is the GPT-5 Mini. So the different agents, I have tried quite a many combinations. So this current mix is an end result of quite a lot of experimentation. So the GPT-5 Mini is quite good model, I think.
All right, so we're nearing the end of our time. Last chance if people still have any questions. If not, I'm sure that Olli-Pekka and Jaakko will be glad to hear from you. They have been pretty amazing at collecting feedback, which is something I really appreciate. I think that's such a great attitude for builders. So, any last questions?
Apparently not.
Pekka, Jaakko, thank you so much. This was really, really cool. I'm really excited about GitHits and I feel privileged to get to see it from the very early stages and follow as it progresses. All the best to you and very curious to see how it continues growing.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us, and thanks for all the comments and questions. We really appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right.
Great. Yeah.
Bye.